Hello and welcome to tonight's broadcast of Tap Into the Truth. With you as always, I am your host, Tim Tapp. Tonight we are broadcasting live from scenic, historic Roane County, Tennessee, in the middle of the little green dot on the radar scans of all the snow that's falling all around us. Yes, here in East Tennessee, everybody's getting a nice little dose of snow except for this little location where I happen to be broadcasting from. Not that I wouldn't like to see a little bit of the white stuff. We don't get it very often here in Tennessee, but for our friends and neighbors in Knox County in particular, they were having a really hard time with it, just trying to get around. Hope you guys managed to get in and safe and warm before things got too bad. And hopefully you're having the opportunity to sit here and listen to the show right now. At any rate, today's general topic, something I came across today, questioning the fact that evidently for some time now, although it's been kept rather quiet, the Obama administration has been seeking to test an anthrax vaccine on children. This being a very what shall we say, one more major step in demonstrating the hypocrisy of using children as a political prop just yesterday. Because we all know this is all for the children, right? Anyway, before we get to that topic, let's go ahead and take a look at world news. Today, it was officially announced that Iran is warning of terrorist attacks on Washington, D.C. In a story that was carried by Iran's Fars news agency, a senior Iranian religious cleric warned that D.C. should prepare for terrorist attacks in the future. This warning followed a brutal attack on Shiites in Pakistan that Iran blames on the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. The Fars media outlet, effectively controlled by the Iranian government, said that the Ayatollah condemned the, quote, massacre of Shiite Muslims in a terrorist attack in Pakistan, which he said has been financed by the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. He warned that the terrorism that these countries support will one day backfire and target Washington, London, and Riyadh. Also, on a world news topic with terrorism as a side post, evidently the Algerian hostage crisis is coming to an end. It has been reported at this point roughly 25 escaped and 6 were killed in an operation at the gas plant that had been occupied by an Al-Qaeda-linked group. 25 foreign hostages managed to escape while 6 were killed today when Algerian forces launched an operation to free them from a remote desert gas plant as one of the biggest international hostage crises in decades unfolded. In the first official word from Algeria, after hours of fast-moving events, government spokesman Mohammed Said was quoted as saying that the operation to free the hostages was still going on and many terrorists had been killed. There had been several deaths and injuries among the hostages, he said, without elaborating. The reported loss of hostages' lives raised concern from Western leaders, scrambling for word on the fate of their nationals. A local source was quoted as saying that 3 foreign hostages were freed by the army as it continued its operation after dark. The standoff between the gunmen, calling themselves the Battalion of Blood, stormed the gas facility on Wednesday morning. They said that they were holding 41 foreigners and demanded a halt to a French military operation against fellow Al-Qaeda-linked Islamist militants. The raid increased fears that jihadist militants could launch further attacks in Algeria. Algeria is, of course, a vast desert country with large oil and gas reserves that is only just recovering from a protracted conflict with Islamic rebels during the 1990s. That long-term battle cost an estimated 200,000 lives. Another local source was also quoted as saying that 6 foreign hostages were killed, along with 8 captors, when the Algerian military fired on a vehicle being used by the gunmen. He said that 40 Algerians and 3 foreigners were freed by the army as it continued its operations into Thursday evening. An Algerian security source said earlier today that 25 foreign hostages had escaped. The ANI news agency, which had been in constant contact with the kidnappers, had earlier said 7 hostages were still being held: 2 Americans, 3 Belgians, 1 Japanese, and 1 British citizen. It also quoted one of the kidnappers as saying that Algerian ground forces were trying to fight their way into the complex. And just in case you guys hadn't heard, it hasn't exactly been one of the top news topics. French military is currently actively fighting Islamic militants in one of its former colonies, just neighboring Algeria. Terrorists seeking unarmed civilian targets as a way of retaliating for legitimate militaries providing legitimate military support to legitimate governments within a nation. How is it that these people manage to accrue any sympathy anywhere? Who is it that's dumb enough to feel sorry for a terrorist? I mean, these people portray themselves as victims of the society they're in. And they believe themselves to be victims of this Western lifestyle that just takes from them. How can you convince these people of this? Well, you know, as irritating as it is to think about it, it's the exact same process that the so-called progressives have used on the lower income classes here in the United States to eventually convince these people that they are entitled to things. Those mean old nasty rich people only got rich by taking stuff away from us. They need to give it back. Anybody miss the little connect the dots we're playing here? Keep in mind, if that's the same strategy to convince people that you're entitled to something, how much further down the road is it to convince these people they should do something about it? If you don't think that we're being conditioned to get used to the idea of shooting at each other, take a long, hard look at the gang culture. Gang violence isn't solely related to whatever illicit business activities they may be conducting. It's about turf wars. It's about you wearing the wrong colors. You're different than we are by any marginal difference that can be pointed out, and that makes you fair game to be shot at. It's the same mentality. That's what we have to start working on, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to build our neighborhoods. We've got to build our communities, and we do that through interacting with each other so that we can see where we have more in common than we have different. And when we can bridge those gaps, then we can start to turn things around. Can't expect the government to do it. The government we have, first of all, was never meant to do that kind of thing. It was designed solely to provide a minimum number of functions, primarily to secure and protect our natural, God-given rights. All right, closer to home, of all places, the hacker group known as Anonymous has come out and said that Obama's gun control policies is a lot like Hitler. Excuse me, sorry about that. Now, here's the real question. I have heard several people today going on about how upset they were that everybody's making the Hitler comparison to Obama. I mean, if you heard yesterday's show, you know that I did it too. There were literally millions of posts on Facebook and conservative communities like TeaPartyCommunity.com and FreedomConnector.com. These postings were just going off the chain, one after another, showing not only Hitler, but also Mussolini, also Stalin, also Mao. I mean, there's a ton of people who used the children as military excuse for military action to disarm the citizens. It's always for the children. It's always with the best of intentions that tyranny takes its foothold. And when groups like Anonymous, who don't exactly play by the rules, come out and call you out in public, then you need to be concerned, because these people, I don't agree with their methods by any means, because I think they harm way too many people other than the intended target with a lot of the hacking that they do. But as far as them coming out publicly, more people need to do that. We need to see that people of reasonable intelligence or better, and I would kind of inclinate that these people have slightly better than average intelligence, just given what they do and how they manage to accomplish it. When they call you out and see what you're doing for what it is, then we've got to realize that, you know what, we're not alone. As conservatives, as libertarians, as people who believe in liberty and freedom, we're not alone. There are people that are a little more radical than most of us would like to have to be. Notice I said like to have to be. Doesn't mean we wouldn't be willing to be if necessary. But we're not alone. We're not out there. The message is resonating, and we have more than just the standard conservative voices that are spreading it. But ladies and gentlemen, I continue to call on you as a listener of this broadcast, and as a member of your community, as a member of your church family, as a member of whatever groups you may be a part of, we have to take steps to preserve our liberty and our sovereignty. We have a group of people in government that are working very hard to eliminate the sovereignty. We've got to take it back. What were they talking about? They were talking about Obama's gun control package yesterday. That was almost exclusively all we discussed yesterday. It was the 23 executive actions. Well, today the press started working their magic and trying to cover things up, but we'll give a little brief thing. According to early estimates, and remember in yesterday's broadcast I mentioned that several of these so-called actions were nothing more than excuses to funnel money to some preferred outfit, some preferred group. I mean, quite honestly, if the CDC is going to conduct research on the effects of gun violence in video games and movies and other forms of media, doesn't that